What's going on, guys? It's Chris, and I'm one with the Force. What is up, guys? Happy Force Friday, Triple Force Friday. Thank you for being with me today. And before we get going, make sure you guys subscribe to this channel. I'm going to be covering all things Star Wars for the foreseeable future, man. The Mandalorian, Jedi Fallen Order, The Rise of Skywalker. Make sure you hit that subscribe button now so you don't miss anything and all the topics we'll be discussing over those movies and shows coming our way. But as you guys saw in the title, today I'm going to be telling you how I fell in love with Star Wars, this great series, man. And really from the first moments I had with it all the way up until now, and how I've just kept my fandom going throughout the years when there was nothing going. And, now we're at a time where there's a lot of content, and just how, where the state of the franchise is now from my perspective. And in the comments, I kind of want to know what you guys think, because one thing I've seen just through all these fandoms out there is that they've been going on. These franchises have been running for a long time. And that's actually one of the reasons why I'm doing this video, is because I want to branch off into other topics and discuss kind of where Star Wars and some of its fans are seeing the progression in a positive way, where it's losing some people, and where the perspective that you have upon the series might shape how you think about it. And it might help you with some of the other series, because I promise you it's happening pretty much in every series that's been going on for 30 years, where there's some turmoil within the fan base. All right, now let's get into this. And obviously with something like this, the best place to start is in the beginning. If you guys don't know, I'm about 27 years old, and so that makes me my first Star Wars experience now, hear me out, was the Phantom Menace. When I went with my parents, I was in theaters for that. I don't know if it was the first night or not, but I remember being a packed theater. I'd never had something like that before, where there were just so many people, and you could tell it was an event even as a child. I don't forget what year it came out, but I'm probably 7-8 years old, but there were just so many people there, and it was an event. And I remember the movie, but after that movie, I don't remember thinking I was a fan yet. I remember my stepmom, my dad, they kind of knew more about everything going on. I remember my dad even saying something about Anakin or Darth Vader or something, and that just, it meant something to me, but I didn't, obviously I didn't know what that really meant. But Attack of the Clones, when Attack of the Clones came out, that's like when I first knew that I was a fan. Obviously I remember that movie. There were so many, cool moments. I remember as a kid, I loved the battle between Kenobi and Boba on Kamino. I just thought that was dope. As a child, that's still one of my favorite Star Wars battles for some reason, just nostalgia. But everything, the Battle of Geonosis, I remember just loving Yoda at the end, going in on Dooku with his saber. The first time we saw Yoda with the saber. So that was the movie. And as a child, I started getting the lightsaber toys and playing around the house, doing duels with friends and my siblings. Like, that's when the Star Wars world really captured my imagination, as a youth. And obviously Star Wars is such a big cultural phenomenon that I knew about a character like Yoda, because I knew when I saw the scene, I knew it was a big deal that was Yoda doing that. So obviously I knew about the characters in Vader and some of the original trilogy characters, but I'm admitting at this point I had seen those movies, but not like really grabbing on to like really know them. I knew the characters, but I knew the story on, like, I guess a surface level, without really seeing the full movies, maybe just bits and pieces, over being, young. And maybe there was one of them I saw more than others, probably Return of the Jedi. But at this point, my Star Wars, it's the prequels. It really is at this point. Attack of the Clones with friends, all the way up into Revenge of the Sith. Also another great experience. Remember being in theaters for that. And that was the movie where the Star Wars story really started to come together for me, as it did for a lot of people, I'm sure my age, that were just being introduced. And you're seeing Anakin fall, and kind of just how that all went down. I mean, Revenge of the Sith still stands as one of the better Star Wars movies to most people, and I would agree. It all comes together. It's like, this is the story we've been waiting to see. What we see in Revenge of the Sith, they really closed the prequels off great there. And again, this is, so as a youth, this is probably the peak of my fandom, but it would carry. Again, this is when like I said, the story started to piece together a lot better for me. There were some games that came out. I remember don't remember the name of it, but there were games that you could play with the actual characters, and then some kind of non-canon, if you would, games like Force Unleashed that would play. But this is where I'm going to be candid, and I would like to hear in the comments where you guys were during this period. Let's just say from the prequels to the sequels, there were probably hot and cold periods for everybody during this period of time. I know for myself, for the most part, honestly, just growing up as a teen, I was still someone that loved Star Wars and knew about it and would talk about it when it came up. But I mean, that passion was just placed elsewhere. It was placed in other franchises that were producing, more consistent content, or just, sports, or just other things, life, just growing up. It wasn't and this is me, this is not going to be the case for everybody, but for me, as I was still a fan, but it wasn't just on the forefront of my mind, I guess. And, obviously the Clone Wars, the series came out, and I remember watching that, and don't remember quite the circumstances, but I didn't watch it all but I did, watch it. I ended up coming around. I've seen it all now. Now I'm in high school. Let's just go to high school, and there were conversations that would happen amongst guys, but nothing constant. Like, really, it would, it wasn't on the forefront of really anyone that I was associated with. And I knew people that were friends, but it really wasn't there like that in this time. And this is between the period, 2008 to 2012, this time period, and roughly that time period I'm talking about, on high school years. So again, now I'm trying to get to where Force Awakens comes out, and my whole point of this is to talk about kind of my experience with Star Wars over this last 5 years, however long it's been since Force Awakens came out, and just how I really have loved a lot of what I've been into. Now, not all of it has all been Disney associated, or some of the things that people maybe have been turned off by, but I want to get into it. So when The Force Awakens starts coming out, obviously there's real hype. This is when there's a group message I have with a bunch of my high school guys. Maybe there's about 12 of us. There were things we're talking about this movie going in, but I don't remember much about the pre-speculation, but I know once we saw Force Awakens, I mean, it lit up the group me like nothing else. Everybody was just a huge Star Wars fan, everybody. But for me personally at this time, this is, again, like, I went all in on Force Awakens. I mean, seeing this thing multiple times in the movies, it captured my imagination. I mean, I've had it happen with something else later on in life, in Game of Thrones, but at the time, like, I hadn't had something since I had grown up capture me like Star Wars Force Awakens did. Like I said, continuing to watch the movies, then from there getting into the novelizations of the prequel movies, and things, just going back and diving into things that I had missed. Clone Wars, a series, again, like, ended up watching that all from start to finish. Another great series. All this stuff, man, you really just, once you dive into Star Wars, when you watch the content multiple times, or just feed in and put your teeth into more content, the world just opens up for you, and like so many times, whatever you think you knew about Star Wars, you don't know. Everybody watching this video, trust me, you don't know anything about Star Wars. There's something you don't know that you can put your teeth into. Like, wow, like, I never knew that. I never thought about that way. It's what makes it so beautiful. But Force Awakens specifically, I think, really captured that. There were so many questions about Rey, and even Finn, and some of these things I'm going to talk about, and they're unanswered questions. I want to just bring them up now because there were things you have to think about. Like, Finn was this stormtrooper that had, resisted. He was able to pull away and run away and was successful. Like, all that stuff is interesting. Kylo being the son of, Han and Leia, like, how did he get to this point to where he is going to take that move against his father? We see the confliction inside him. We know this is not an easy move for Kylo, but he does it. I mean, this is a movie that just really is like, wow, like, what happened here? I need to know what happened before this with Kylo and Rey, and where is this going? Like, The Force Awakens really, it's hard for me not to give it an A. I understand why people had its problems with it, but it was definitely my favorite Star Wars experience. I've never had an experience like Force Awakens. Sorry guys, Force Awakens was my favorite experience. That theater experience, going and seeing it multiple times, just how it put me into the Star Wars universe, wanting to get into anything and everything Star Wars. Man, The Force Awakens put me in that, and I mean, I have to give it an A for that. But I do understand where people may be coming from, to where they didn't like fully how The Last Jedi and Force Awakens meshed, to where it might have hurt their view of The Force Awakens a bit. I understand where they may be coming from there, but you have to give respect to The Force Awakens for that. And you know what? and in combination, because Rogue One came out short thereafter, and this is the big part that I know is gonna get and dig to you, a lot of original trilogy fans. I can honestly say that once I watched Rogue One and went back to New Hope and watched New Hope, I had a whole new appreciation for that movie, and because of that, I had a whole new appreciation for the original trilogy. Over this time, even before Rogue One, but as The Force Awakens, was out and I was diving into things, I got back into the original trilogy and watched it. But again, after Rogue One, it just seemed like it just added so much to it, and now the original trilogy, all that content, I'm just as interested in diving into. Rebels is now out, and it's going into this time period, and again, I'm just all in. Each and everything I watch, each and everything I read is giving me so much depth to a certain character or time period, and it's fulfilling. Like, it's rewarding. I feel like every time I invest time and hours into something, it's bringing back to me. Like, it's coming back, and I loved it. So we get into The Last Jedi, and I actually saw that a friend of mine that's a Star Wars fan, and again, like, I do like The Last Jedi. I have no problem. I think back then, I gave it a 7.8 out of 10. Like, that's kind of where I put it. Like, I like it, but I definitely see where some of the issues some people may have with it. And my friend of mine, his initial viewing, he wasn't sure how he felt, and I wasn't quite sure how I felt either, but I knew I liked it. He wasn't quite sure how he felt, and I think he's grown to come around on it, to be fine with it, although there might be some things that he doesn't like. But there are some things. Again, I'll branch off into other topics from this video where we'll really dig into The Last Jedi. What were some people's problems, why they had some of those problems, and if they were justified to me, and or not. But again, I did enjoy it. The things I was wishing for, I wish, like I said, there could have been some more synergy between Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. It's there more than people give it credit for, but I definitely think it didn't build up. Like, again, The Force Awakens had so much, I don't even want to just say mystery, because mystery means like you have to solve it, and The Last Jedi didn't necessarily have to solve every mystery of The Force Awakens, but The Force Awakens just captured the imagination, I guess, so much better in terms of what it did with all the characters. But I did like The Last Jedi, and the Solo movie as well. I know that didn't do box office numbers, but I would argue that anyone that saw it as a Star Wars fan was probably fine with it. Didn't have to love it, but I mean, it wasn't bad. That's the same thing with The Last Jedi. It wasn't just a bad movie either. It might not have done what you wanted it to do, and it might not have pieced with The Force Awakens how you wanted to piece it, or for some people, just the grand Star Wars universe, which, like, if that was a big problem for you, I understand why you wouldn't like it for that reason. But none of these movies to me were just flat bad movies. And even if you didn't like The Last Jedi, I feel like the grand total of what Disney Star Wars has given us, to me, has been definitely satisfactory. Between The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, Star Wars Rebels, and Han Solo, I would say satisfactory. Now, listen, there is an underbelly to certain decisions that have been made and how certain things have executed itself. And I actually am going to have a video on what I think is there is one huge, big missed opportunity that Disney Star Wars has had. I mean, they messed this all the way up, and really, really bad. But I'll get into that this weekend. But I'm satisfied with what they've given us. Again, I've never been a bigger Star Wars fan than I've been over the last couple years, and I can say that. I know that this has been a period where it's turned off a lot of Star Wars fans, and so from someone that feels the way that I do, that's it's been a weird time, because, like, man, I want to be out here. This is awesome. I love this. This Star Wars is awesome. And again, I started watching the prequels, and I love the prequels, but I love the sequels as well. But then I'm seeing all this hate for what's going on, and some of it is they're putting it on The Last Jedi, but a lot of it is stuff that has been building up for years about certain parts of the fan base. Then The Last Jedi was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back in certain ways, because the fandom is still strong. Again, there's a lot of new people like myself that are here and love this, but some of the OGs that may feel a bit differently. But that's kind of just my perspective on it. I want to hear from you guys. When were your heights of the Star Wars as a Star Wars fan? How do you feel about the current state? Even if you hated The Last Jedi, was it enough to really pull you away and have you feeling that this entire Disney run has been less than satisfactory or not needed? Because again, I can say that it was needed for myself. Now, again, for others, it was not. You know, for those that were, if you were a fan, as much as a fan as I am now, maybe you didn't need the sequels because you were so wrapped into the Legends novels and the OT and the prequels that you really didn't need that. And I respect, and I can completely understand that. But my perspective is different. This really opened my mind up, you know, expanded my Star Wars, you know, knowledge and my fandom, you know, 100 times. So I love this time period. I'm so excited for what's to come. You know, I think that I'm optimistic that Disney is going to learn from mishaps, because they have made mistakes, you know, and I'll go over some of those. And I think that they've learned from them. I think that because Star Wars is such a big franchise, and so is Disney, and that their mistakes are being put out there to everyone, and really a lot of these fan bases are making these same mistakes and a lot worse. But you know, Disney and Star Wars have such a high expectation, and again, some of it is there are mistakes that are being made that they just need to get corrected. But let me know what you guys think. Please subscribe to this channel. I'm going to be having a lot of Star Wars discussions, you know, branching off from this topic here, but also going over just some specific things like Jedi Fallen Order, The Mandalorian, The Rise of Skywalker. So if you are interested in any of that, make sure you subscribe and like this video. I'm Coach Chris Geek'd. I'm out of here.